Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to Act 3 on CHL 101.7 FM. I'm Kathy Holmes. I'm so glad to be your host in the Zoom booth radio program. Booth. We've got today someone very new and very special to our community. I'd like to introduce you to Julie Boyer, and she has the Mid-Island Female Entrepreneurs. And I know I said entrepreneurs wrong because that's always been a word I say wrong. Welcome to the program, Julie. I'm so glad you're here.
Oh, thanks so much. I'm really excited to be a first-time guest.
Well, thanks for coming, and we look forward to having you on the program again. How about you give us a little bit of an idea about, what brought you to NIMO? I understand you're quite new to our community, and tell us a little bit about how you got started in this wonderful networking organization.
Sure. So I actually am from Ontario. I was born in Quebec, but grew up in Ontario. And if you've ever been there, the winters are pretty nasty.
Oh, it's
So
freezing. And I
my
hear you've had a
sister,
terrible winter this year in Ontario as well. It's been even
you know
colder.
what? The winter's just rough. The advantage is there's lots more sun. So my sister married a Vancouver boy, moved to BC about 12 years ago now, and we would visit every year. And I would just sometimes 3 times a year. And I just kept saying, I really want to live here. I really want to live here. And she's on the mainland in North Van. So it's a really amazing story that I can get into at another time if you'd like. But basically, in the beginning of 2017, my husband and I created an intention to move to BC, and not for like, we didn't have any specific plan. We just knew that by the end of the year, we'd be living in BC. And so on December 15th, 2017, we moved into our home in Langley on the mainland. Now, all things being said, buying a house sight unseen from across the country is not necessarily the best idea. And so we ended up things didn't work out in our home in Langley. And my parents were looking to move from the inland of BC to Vancouver Island. I had been once before many, many years ago. I remembered how beautiful it was. And I'll say the first day I came across on the ferry and we went right to Piper's Lagoon. I don't know why. We just went to, I think our agent said, explore the area before we look at houses. And I walked down to the end of the lagoon and up to the top, and I stood there and I breathed and I was like, we're going to live here. So that was 2.5 years ago. Our situation has changed a lot since then, but I'm here in Lantzville, and I get out to Piper's Lagoon and Neck Point Park and Sebastian Beach most mornings to take photos of the sunrise.
Well, I have to tell you, living anywhere on this part of the rock is it's really extraordinary. It's far different than being on the mainland. I'm also a mainland girl. I get it. It's a completely different environment. How did you find the transition when you first arrived? Was it all you thought it would be?
In terms of the environment, so I live in Lantzville. I'm actually wearing my Lantzville Living hoodie because I love my little community of Lantzville. I'll tell you this, Kathy, the very first day that we moved, so we arrived in the evening, one of the later ferries, get the truck over in one day, unload as quickly as possible. The next morning, I found my way to Piper's Lagoon for the sunrise. So in terms of the environment, I was sold right away on the environment. For me, the natural beauty. Wait, I'm going to stop talking about it. Nobody else move here. There's no room. It's perfect. We were perfect. We have a shortage of houses. Never mind. I won't continue.
In actual fact that, so our listeners run from Duncan all the way to Campbell River and across to the Sunshine Coast and really into North Vancouver. So we have a little bit of a special life on this island, and even the small Gulf islands around. It's almost as if you get off of the ferry and there is a decompression. It's like immediate. As soon as you land, you're like, oh, here I am. It's just so peaceful and so relaxing. Tell us more. Oh, everybody's welcome to the Zoom. That's Bobby Wilson and Kevin. Hang on a sec. Let me ask you a question in that process.
Sure.
Yes. Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry, everybody. Enjoy the listen. Tell very quickly, why don't you introduce us to the beginning of Mid-Island Female Entrepreneurs?
Sure.
Sorry about that, ladies.
No, you know what? I have a dog as well, and I'm a podcaster, so I get it. So while the dogs calm down and greet whoever's at your door, so When I first arrived, I actually belonged to a great group, which is Nanaimo Women in Business and Women in Business Networking, and it's a great group. And I would go to their like their meetings in person and their dinner meetings. And honestly, I made so many good friends in that group, and it was fantastic. Then we had a pandemic. And I remember around this time last year was our last dinner in person. And I even remember we were like, should we be hugging? I don't really know. Like it was a really weird time. And I knew that that was going to be our last meeting. And so I missed it. And honestly, I went through a really challenging personal time at the beginning of the pandemic. So I kind of even stepped back from that group and didn't really get involved. And then I found myself at the end of 2020 really missing networking. So when I was in Ontario, I actually participated in many, many networking groups. I would be out at least once a week in some kind of networking business. And that's also how I grew my business really for the first 11 years. And I met a new friend. Her name is Cora Lee, and she and I were chatting. And she said, I talked a little bit about, I'd really love for a way to, I want to connect not just from Nanaimo. I want to connect with female entrepreneurs that are sort of in the mid island. I want to just open that up virtually eventually, because eventually we're hopefully going to be able to see each other in person. So I want to keep it geographically close. But I also, we've been doing this amazing support local movement for so long, but I didn't know a ton of local people because they hadn't been here that long before we went into COVID. So I haven't had the same opportunities to meet as many local entrepreneurs, or we just meet briefly in a Facebook group. I wanted to get to know people. And so Cora Lee, I committed to her that I would, because we talked this idea through, and I committed to her that I would start the group. And we actually just started about 6 weeks ago. We meet twice a month, and we meet for lunch on the first and third Thursdays of the month. That way, for some people, for some women, that means that they can actually join us, because many entrepreneurs aren't available in the evening, or they can't do the early morning. So I picked a time that worked for me, and then I picked a time that would hopefully work for more. And I just want to be clear that anyone who identifies as a woman or non-binary is welcome to join as well. If they feel comfortable identifying with the kind of people that are in the group, that's absolutely, everyone is welcome in that way. But this is focused on, of course, females and those who identify that way.
Fantastic. Can you tell us a little bit about some of the members that have joined you so far?
Well, Cora Lee Kasberg, she is a financial advisor. We've had some incredible women. Christy, she's the owner of Huckleberry Baby Shop. We've had Heike, who is brand new to the community. She does reflexology, among other things. My good friends I've had several good friends who run yoga studios. My friend Kim, who's running Culturally Committed. So it's a combination of people that I already knew in the community, and then people who also they were just looking for a place to meet other female entrepreneurs during the day, basically. And then, our plan really is just to keep growing. And we do these live meetings in a way that we practice our introduction, right? We practice introducing ourselves. We're going to be working on what our customer avatar is, who is the best, who am I looking for my business? How can we refer each other? And the other thing is the group really is all about getting to know each other. And if we can do business with each other, great. But that's not the only goal. The goal is to support each other, whether it be through social media and that kind of support, or also to support each other through referrals. So not necessarily, we're not all going to just buy from each other. That's not what this is all about. It's really about
Sharing
getting to know our
knowledge.
local community.
Yeah, absolutely. And we all know that when it comes to business, the key to business is network, 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 network. At the beginning of the conversation, you talked about your own business.
Mhm.
What is it that you do aside of this networking thing? Can you tell us a little bit about what it is that you do that sort of even led you to the need to do this networking as well?
Sure. So I'm an intuitive business and health coach. I've actually been in business for 15 years, and my business is Wake Up with Gratitude. So I do a number of things under that Wake Up with Gratitude umbrella. I mentioned that I love to take photos of our local environment. So one of the businesses that I started under Wake Up with Gratitude when I first moved here is about a year after I moved here, is I started creating products with my photos. what I noticed, Kathy, is that printing and putting photos in frames like I have behind me, that's not something that everybody's going to do. But what I did do instead is I created a set of greeting cards. So with images that I took, this is actually a sunset, and some of them have words of gratitude inside and others are blank inside. And the really cool thing about the cards is that they're local art and creativity. And then I've actually, Coralie and I met, and I ended up doing custom cards for her. She wanted a custom set of thank you cards that had a local image on it for her business. So that's something that I do. You can see the calendar in the back as well. I created a calendar.
I'm just going to actually stop you there for a second. Our radio listeners unfortunately can't see what's behind
Oh,
you.
never mind. Sorry, this is for the YouTube people.
For our YouTube
Yes,
people,
of
you
course.
can see this. But for our radio listeners, just to give you a little bit of feedback, these pictures are absolutely extraordinary sunsets. They're beautiful. She has a number of different ones that are available, and it's a perfect time actually to segue to my favorite part of the program, which is to tell people to grab a piece of paper and a pen so that they can come back and they can reach you and they can check out what it is that you're doing for themselves. So if you just tuned in, everybody, you are listening to Act 3 on CHLY 101.7 FM in beautiful, fabulous Nanaimo and Lanceville, I might add. Julie Boyer is our guest. She has a company called Wake Up with Gratitude, and she is responsible for bringing together the Mid-Island female entrepreneurs. So go grab your piece of paper while we're still talking. So, sorry, let's go back to the Wake Up with Gratitude photo cards.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the cool thing is it's easy to find me. I'm just wakeupwithgratitude.com. So it's super easy to find me, and you can find me on so if you're looking for that networking group, like you can just look up Julie Boyer, and that's spelled, looks like Boyer when you spell it, Boyer for those listening. Yeah. So the reason I created a calendar is because, well, I love this little village of Lanceville that I'm in. I know we're just outside Nanaimo. We're like north Nanaimo, but with our own special little village, right? And I really wanted a way to honor the shop local movement that was happening at the end, really in 2020, but it was kind of getting more momentum towards the end of the year. And so I decided to make a calendar for 2021 that specifically has images just from Sebastian Beach and the other little beaches around, specifically in Lanceville. And thankfully, I think there's 10 beach accesses in Lanceville. I mean, there are no beach accesses in Lanceville, never mind. I feel like I'm giving away all the Lanceville secrets.
In all fairness, they're really tiny little, I mean, I frequent them. I love Lanceville. I love the beaches. I love the sea lions that come through.
Mm-hmm.
It's really, really amazing to spend time there. But you're right, they're tiny little access points, and there are about 10 of them or so. Not a lot of parking, but
Yeah.
it's very reserved and just so spectacular. It's beautiful.
Yes. And I mean, you're welcome to come and visit. Just please pay attention to the parking signs because there's a lot of no parking. It's very different. It's not the same as when you go to a Neck Point or a Piper's Lagoon where you have a parking lot, to park safely and get to the beach. But I just wanted to honor the community in that way. And it was great. I sold out of my first print run, ended up doing a second print run. And I'm already thinking of ideas as I capture different photos this year. I know the 2022 calendar will represent, all the way kind of from Nanaimo to Nanoose, because I found some cool places in Nanoose where I want to take sunrise photos as well. So it's really, I mean, this is only a very small part of my business, but as you can tell, it's something that I'm so passionate about. And I just love being in front of the water and just seeing the sunrise.
Well, the sunrise always brings for a brand new day, and I'm a big believer in gratitude. There's so much negativity going on in the world these days, and it takes just a moment to be really honoring the things that we are grateful for every single day, and starting it as your day. I mean, what time do you start for sunrise? Is like 5 in the morning, 4 in the morning in the summertime. In the winter,
in the summer, yeah,
6 and 7.
Okay, so do you want me to reveal the sunrise secrets to
Oh,
your
yes,
listeners?
indeed. I think they love that.
Okay, because this is all top secret. Okay. So first of all, on your weather app, it will tell you what time the sun is rising. So the key is for sunrise, especially here, you aim to arrive 20 to 30 minutes before the sunrise time on your app. Now know that the sun, of course, does not rise in the same place on the horizon throughout the year. It actually moves. So in the winter, it's like behind, if you're at Piper's, I'm just going to use Piper's as an example. If you know what Piper's Lagoon is, if you've been there, okay. The sun in the winter rises behind Gabriola. And as we move towards the summer, the sun gets further and further across the horizon so that it's really almost like directly in front of you when you're at the very end of the lagoon, up on top of the escarpment looking over. So the sun moves throughout the year for sunrise. Same for sunset, of course. We are so lucky that we can see the sunrise and sunset here. Wow, like it's incredible.
Indeed. We really are very
So
fortunate. Mhm.
now here's the secret part is that in the winter, the sunrises are more striking because of the way the sun rises on the horizon. So in the winter, because the sun doesn't go as high in the sky, it kind of skims the horizon. So what that means is you can be taking sunrise photos for over an hour. So, and
Wow.
it's later and it sits at around 8 o'clock in the morning for about the whole month of December and January until mid-February. So for a while, because we have the time change, which that may change things, then the sun will be rising at 9 a.m.
Mhm.
But it sits at around the same time for almost 3 weeks. It doesn't move at all. The sun, it doesn't get any earlier, it doesn't get any later, it just sits. So the winter is a really good time because it's not as early to get up for sunrise. Now we're really speeding up now. We're into March and the sun is getting earlier and earlier and earlier by a few minutes a day. So within a week, you've got it 10 minutes earlier. So I have to set my alarm. And what happens as we get closer to the summer is the angle gets sharper. So you're saying get up at 4 in the summer. And yes, I have to get up at 4 if I'm going for sunrise, but I'm very careful, but I don't go every day because here's the thing. It happens so fast. So you don't have as long to enjoy taking the pictures and they're often not as striking or as colorful. Right?
Interesting. So wintertime is the time to take those shots
Yeah.
more than ever.
Yeah.
What got you into photography? You obviously enjoy the camera.
Well, okay, I'm going to tell you another secret, but you can't tell anybody else. So those on the video will see what I'm holding up, but for our listeners, I'm going to tell you that I'm holding up my camera right now, and my camera is my smartphone.
Yes.
I have been taking photos since I was 6 years old. I had a camera, a Kodak disc for those that remember. I learned how to take pictures with a Minolta with film. I mean, I've always taken photos and just really enjoyed photography. And when my phone, I had like the Samsung 4 a number of years ago, and the camera started to be better on my phone. And my daughter was very young. So I just didn't have time. Like I couldn't carry the phone and the camera when we would go out. So I just started having my phone with me.
Yeah,
So
totally.
right? Like who
Mhm.
has that many pockets, especially with a
Absolutely.
young child?
Yes.
So I started to learn to take photos with my phone. So I went from the Samsung Galaxy 4 to the 6 to the 8. And then last year I upgraded to the 10, which is amazing because it has a wide angle lens. And people don't even understand that I'm taking these with my phone.
That's incredible. That technology on our telephone or smartphone is so fantastic that you can take professional quality photographs like nothing. Like they're beautiful. I mean, I know our listeners can't see them, but trust me when I tell you they're absolutely stunning. So from that part of it, it became very obvious that that's part through making the cards and other areas. What else does Wake Up with Gratitude, and how did Wake Up with Gratitude come about?
Well, that's a very different and a little bit of an emotional story if we can sort of shift the energy.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I have a daughter I mentioned. She's now 10 and she's amazing. And I'm so incredibly grateful to have a child. I suffer from endometriosis, which means that I'm very lucky to have one child at all.
Absolutely.
And back at the end of 2014, I was pregnant for the third time. So I'd already had one traumatic miscarriage and I was pregnant again. I was very nervous for sure. But I at 12 weeks, I started to bleed and I knew it was happening because I'd been through it before.
Devastating though for the spirit. Like
Yeah,
it's not an easy
it's,
thing to go through.
it is. And
Yeah.
I talk about this because so many women have been through this and I don't think miscarriage should be a secret. So I went to the hospital and had to have an operation called a DNC. So if sometimes that happens if your miscarriage isn't complete. And so I'd had the procedure before, so I knew what I was getting into and I thought I can handle this. I'm fine. I ended up though getting very, very ill. So what happened is that I had a life-threatening bacterial infection.
Oh my God.
It's called invasive group A strep. And that's the bacteria that causes flesh-eating disease or sepsis. So I got the sepsis kind. So what that meant is it's blood poisoning. And, I definitely look at myself as lucky because I survived, because most people that get to the hospital with this are already too late to be saved because their organs have already started to shut down. So I was about, 12 to 24 hours early enough to be saved. And, Kathy, when I was finally admitted to the hospital, I had brought my gratitude journal with me. And that then they had to put me in a medically induced coma for a week in order for me to heal.
Wow.
Yeah. So I'll tell you, when you wake up from having been in a medically induced coma to save your life, and, I couldn't really speak. You can tell I love to talk, but having been intubated for a week, right? I couldn't speak. When you're like that for a week, you lose about 50% of your muscle mass. I couldn't hold a pen.
My,
I couldn't hold my phone to like even send a message to someone. It was insane. So I woke up and it was a Monday and it was right before Christmas. So I was like, I need to get home for Christmas. I want to get home for Christmas. And my friend, who is a doctor, he's an emergency room physician, and he wasn't my physician when I was sick, but he would actually check in on me every day. And he said to me, Julie, right now you have to tap into your Ironman mentality, because I completed 3 Ironmans. He's like, you need that mental toughness right now to get yourself out of the hospital as quickly as possible, to be home with your daughter and spend Christmas with your family. And so I used my mindset to like go from being asleep for a week and barely able to, I couldn't even, the styrofoam cups they have in hospital with the straw so you can drink water. I couldn't
yeah,
get the cup
absolutely.
to my lips.
Oh my God.
So
Oh my God.
yeah, but I like my mindset was like, I got to get home. So by the Wednesday evening, so 2 days later, I was able to walk with a walker and went to the step down ward. And the next day was released to go home. I hadn't seen my daughter in, almost 2 weeks. She came to see me in that step down ward. And it was like all the motivation I needed to get home. So after that, I had been practicing gratitude for years after that. And I just remembered, I literally understood what it meant to wake up with gratitude. And the crazy thing, Kathy, is that I had written like a list of like affirmations and things that I was grateful for. And it included like, I'm so grateful to wake up with gratitude every day or something like that. And it took me 2 more years to actually realize that that was actually my brand. I was like, what do I call myself? I don't really know. Um,
Wow, wow, wow. Like almost a moment of clarity of that's where you're going to go.
yeah.
Because, but you're absolutely right. Like you're so delighted to actually be able to move forward and to get up and to get through this. My goodness. My goodness. So what happened next?
Well, I finally came to launching the brand in early 2017. I had a friend to create the logo for me. I launched a website because I'd always been just Julie Boyd, not just. I'd always been Julie Boyd. That was my brand. That was it. But then I just felt this like draw to do Wake Up with Gratitude. So really, it started more as a blogging site and doing coaching and workshops. And then it grew to adding the photography and the cards and the book. The book already existed. The book was actually written after my first miscarriage. It was a way to deal with that.
Okay, okay. I have to interrupt for the book. Tell us about the
Oh,
book.
the
What's
book.
the book?
Sure. Well, after my first traumatic miscarriage, that also, thankfully, that one only ended with a short visit to the hospital. But when I came home from the hospital that night after the first miscarriage, I did write in my gratitude journal. And I thought to myself, if I can write in my gratitude journal after what was at that point the worst moment in my life, I need to share my gratitude strategies with others. So that over the next 30 days, my therapy, my way of dealing with it was writing the book. So from the
How
idea,
cathartic to be able to do that, to write and write and write and put it into,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, and it's a 30-day program. Like it's 30 days of gratitude, the gratitude program that will change your life. And every day there's short chapters, and I just give you a strategy to help you to learn different ways to practice gratitude.
I think we all could use that book and that strategy. Just a short bit ago, we asked people to go get a pen and a paper. And now's a really, really good time to put some of your information out there. So for ladies and gentlemen, if you just tuned in, or if you're watching us on YouTube, you'll notice that there's been a lot of dog barking going on in the background. My little Kevin and my little Bobby Wilson are two little Jack Russells that some days they just really want to be part of the program. They want to talk to you. They want to reach out. They want to touch you. And I'm so sorry for the barking in the background. So my apologies if you have found that pitch to be a little bit annoying. It can be. I love them, but it is what it is. You have tuned in to Act 3 on CHLY 101.7 FM. Into the booth, we have Julie Boyer, and she's going to share some of her information with you right now. Julie, what's your contact information?
So my website is wakeupwithgratitude.com. And I'm really easy to find on all social media. I'm talking Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and LinkedIn and wherever, YouTube. It's just my name, Julie, Julie, my middle initials, C, M like Mary, my last name, Boyer, which is spelled Boyer. So Julie, CM Boyer. So you do the @ on Instagram, on Facebook, on Twitter, on LinkedIn, wherever you prefer to hang out on social. You can find me there. I'm public. I'm easy. I mean, you could just put my name into a Google search and you'll find me. What's that?
And up you'll come. You'll be found that quickly.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Gotta
same
love
with
it.
Wake Up with Gratitude. So I didn't tell you about the last exciting part of the Wake Up with Gratitude brand.
That's okay. We're not finished the program. There's more to share. Come and share with us.
Well, we mentioned the book just before we took our little break there. And so 30 Days of Gratitude, you can find that on my website as well, or that's available actually on any bookseller online. You can get a Kindle version, whatever you choose. I want to tell you actually a little secret about writing a book, because I know so many, I mean, how many of your listeners have wanted to write a book, right? It's like,
so many people really, really do. And I, in all fairness, I've even thought of it myself.
so here's what I want to say about writing a book. First of all, you want to write the book that you would read. That's most important. And you want to write a book that's true and authentic to you and who you are. And what's really cool though, is I did write the book. It's now been almost 8 years. I can't believe it. Listen, friends, you're not going to get rich selling your book. Okay. The chances of your book becoming a bestseller are infinitesimal. However, what's really cool is that every year, just once a year, I get a little check from the company that, I published my book with. And I think that's really fun to say, like, it's work that I did 8 years ago. And so my point is, if you choose to purchase outside of my website, don't worry. They send me a little piece every time that happens. But if you want the author signed copy and you live locally and you want me to drop it off on your front door, I can do that through my website. It's absolutely my pleasure. So keep in mind that, a book is just a great way to get your message out there and to share your story and your legacy, I think, is another thing.
So that was your first book. Or did you write a second as well?
Not yet, but it will probably be called Wake Up with Gratitude. So my next big project, which I launched at the end of 2019. So December 2019, I launched my podcast, the Wake Up with Gratitude podcast.
Yes, how fantastic.
Yeah. So how that came together is I did this personal challenge. I did 30 days of self-love. And I decided to do this challenge because, well, I'll tell you, I was at one of those Lanceville beaches and I just went to the beach and someone had painted a rock and the rock said self-love.
Oh, wow. How lovely. Isn't that great that you found the rock?
Well, I mean, it was meant
It was
for me
meant
to
for
come
you.
across.
Of
Right.
course.
And
That's
so
the
then,
universe.
so then I was like, okay, yeah, because I was looking to do some kind of 30-day thing. I'd done 30 days of gratitude a bunch of times, and that's important too, but I wanted to do something different for me. Like this was about really my own self-love. And it's great because a lot of the things we discussed. So I did interviews. I did 25 interviews and I did 30 days of videos. And it's so great to learn how other people practice self-love and gratitude. Oh, so great. Just
Absolutely.
for me, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I would say the same as a book for a podcast. You want to start a podcast? What do you want to talk about? Right? It's the same for you, I'm sure. Yeah, I mean, you chose to do a radio show on things you enjoy to talk and learn about, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think that, since I started doing it and I started my program about, well, actually, I want to thank Pam Edgar from CHLY. And she had a show 5 years or so ago called Living for the Health of It. And
Mm.
so she introduced me and taught me how to use the board and all of that other fabulous stuff. And then I had my own show a couple of years ago while she was still doing Living for the Health of It and Songwriter Circle.
Mm.
And then, lo and behold, my world changed. And when it changed, I had to just sort of shift that particular the former show and ignited in the new one. And so, Act Three has been, just the best, most wonderful program. I've had so much fun for the last couple of years. So there is some gratitude that goes with it. And I think what I really, know for sure is that so many of the people that I've worked with over the years have likewise done radio shows or likewise now done television programs, because it's really a lot easier than people think. It's hard in some ways, but as you pointed out, Julie, so eloquently, when you're talking about something that you love and you're doing something that you love and you're doing something for community, it all just makes itself, available to you. And it's great. And there's some days that are better than others for sure. Some shows that are better than others for sure. But without a doubt, it's the investment in yourself and the community that make the difference. So you've only been here for a short time. You've got these podcasts that are on the way, or that have been going on for some time now.
Yeah.
You've got this networking thing. How do you keep it all together? How do you balance all of that self-love and time for gratitude with what appears to be a very hectic schedule?
And I homeschool my daughter.
And you homeschool your daughter, so let's just add that to the mix.
Yeah, let's add that. And the other part, I remember I said I was an intuitive business and health coach.
Indeed, let's
And
work
it's
on.
honestly, it's the investment in my health and my nutrition that allows me to. So my very first business that I've been doing for 15 years is really built on a foundation of health and taking care of yourself on a
Yeah,
cellular level.
yeah,
And yes, that includes the foods that I eat, the water that I drink, the way that I nourish my mind and my mental health. I take nutritional supplements. I nourish my gut with probiotics. And then I consult and help with my clients to deal with their own health challenges, whether it's around sleep or energy and all the things that, I deal with. I mean, listen, I'm 45 this year. The perimenopause word is kind of being tossed around a little bit. I have to say, for as someone who suffers from endometriosis, I'm kind of excited for menopause. I know that sounds strange, but I
not at
figure as
all.
long
And actually, one of my best friends had endometriosis, and she ended up having early menopause. So
yeah,
she was kind
well,
of thrown into it
yeah,
well
yeah.
before. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm working on that, but I will say that I do work with clients who are in menopause or perimenopause to help them manage the symptoms. So at least I know what to do should I be thrown into it, very quickly, depending on what the outcomes are, my own health outcomes. But yeah, listen, I don't believe in balance, Kathy. I believe in you've got to make things a priority for them to actually happen. So I'll tell you that all this work that the new work that I've done since I've lived on the island with the photography and starting a podcast and all these things, well, my nutrition and health business suffered. It kind of took a backseat for a while and I kind of had it on autopilot. I had a lot of clients and, team that I work with back from Ontario and Quebec, but I really hadn't been of service to people here on the island. And why not? Here was my thing is like I have something that I can be of service to others and I'm not sharing it. I'm not investing the time in it. So that's not really using the best of my own gifts to be of service to others. So yeah. Oh, hear me.
I totally understand what you're saying. Absolutely. It's sometimes something else has to give in order to be able to be open to new creativity.
Yeah.
What's been your biggest learning curve through all of this?
Oh, that's such a fantastic question. And I will say one of my biggest learnings and something that I'm focusing on for 2021 is to have more compassion. So I chose,
So important. So important. And empathy right along with it. Usually
well,
they kind of are hand in hand, are they not?
oh, absolutely. And I'm an empath, which I only realized, and which is why so here's the thing, Kathy, is, sometimes as we get older, we become more open to recognizing who we are and how we really show up in the world. And I am I'm an intuitive empath. And I, even like 4 months ago, I wouldn't have said that on a public radio show. But what I realized, Kathy, is if you come to me and you have specific challenges and I listen to you, I intuitively know what to say and how to be of service in the best way that I can. And that doesn't mean, sometimes it actually doesn't mean that you need my help. Sometimes I know I'm like, you need to talk to this person. But
That's
it's
where the networking thing comes in.
it's exactly why the networking thing has become really important. But I will listen to you and I will say, you know what? Here are the things that you need. And you can choose to follow my direction or not. And for sure, 15 years of experience in business and all these things helps. But what I've really learned is that, listen, Kathy, I even have an intuition about sunrises.
Tell us more. Like, that's interesting. That's sunrise. That's like, that's God,
Well, it is. So
right?
that's what,
So,
but isn't that what intuition is tapping into the field,
yeah,
right? And
yes,
who else,
absolutely.
right? Like who's manning the field?
Yeah, no, absolutely. No question about that for sure.
So, okay, so I have a number of different weather apps that I have, and I'll consult them before to check like cloud cover, check the time of the sunrise, super important. So I'll set my alarm an hour before, especially if I'm going to drive to Pipers or Neck Point, takes me a bit of time. Then I check the cloud cover, I check precipitation, I check wind speeds, that kind of thing, tides, I'll check tides. And then I'll know whether I need to go or not. So just even, okay, so here's a really cool thing that happened on Friday. This was a sunset thing. So Friday, as you may remember, so depending, I mean, obviously not this, whenever you're listening to it, it was just this past Friday, but we had a really big windstorm on the island. Middle of the afternoon, I look at my apps and I was like, because I had this feeling, I was like, I think I need to go to Neck Point this afternoon. I looked, moonrise was happening,
Ah,
full moon, sunset, within an hour. So this is a really cool thing. If the moon is rising as the sun is setting, you can see the moon better. It will show up bigger and brighter. And then this windstorm with no precipitation. And I knew that Neck Point was the place that I needed to be to capture these points. So I actually canceled my plans. I have like every Friday, I have these plans with friends. I've had them for months and months and months. We meet every Friday online. We play games together. And I canceled my plans. I said, listen, I know this isn't going to make sense to you, but my intuitive like pull to go right now is so strong that I must go. And it was phenomenal.
it was perfect. It fit exactly what you were looking for. For those, I'm wondering, for those, I know this being a radio show, they may not have seen your post. Is that the black and white shot that you took on Facebook?
No, that's just from the other morning at Lanceville. So there's
Oh
a
my
shot
goodness.
on Facebook of the full moon rising above the coastal mountains, which are pink. And there's like, you can see the waves from Neck Point. Like it is to catch like waves and pink mountains and a full moon. And listen, I capture all this with my smartphone. So I'm using a digital zoom. A photographer that I met there, he had his long lens and he was able to capture a couple pictures, but he said he had to put it away because the wind was so strong he couldn't hold it steady. So,
Oh, yes, I
right now
understand
he
that.
did get,
They're heavy. Yeah,
they
yeah,
are heavy.
yeah.
He got a great photo, but like I got a pretty darn good photo. I am way better at sunrises with my camera. I know exactly how to use. This is one thing I wanted to mention. A smartphone camera is only as good as the user.
Yes, like
And guess
anything.
what?
Yeah.
I have another secret for you. Everyone can learn to use their smartphone camera better. Everyone can learn photography and composition if they're interested in it.
Yeah, I personally have not, I'm not technologically savvy. And so I find, certainly with COVID-19, there has been an emphasis on learning IT stuff because we simply have to. I haven't leaned into the telephone photograph thing, but I have always admired people send some of the funniest posts and they are done with the different pieces of their camera, right? They've got little different ways to edit the photos that they've taken that are just absolutely extraordinary. So it's not that difficult to do it, I'm sure. I just haven't learned how to do it yet.
Well, listen, Kathy, I have been asked a number of times to do a workshop on how to use your smartphone camera to take photos. So I'm going to do, and I'll do it for free. just to give some ideas on what to do, the simple things. So just stay connected via
Stay
social.
connected. Yes.
Yeah, and I'll do a workshop for free. I'm saying it out loud in public so that because that's what happened. That's how the networking group started. Is I made a commitment to a friend publicly that I was going to do this and held accountable. So now, Kathy, you and your listeners are going to hold me accountable and say, Julie,
Absolutely.
when's your free smartphone photography workshop?
Absolutely. And for those of you that follow on, subscribe to our YouTube station, I will make sure that the link is in the message box as well, so that you can, if you do miss it, which you won't now because you're really, you're going to tune in. We just know you are. That's just how it's going to be. I've got that. So, by the way, folks, if you've just tuned in, thanks for tuning in to Act 3 on CHLY 101.7 FM. Julie Boyer is our guest today, and she has really opened up a whole lot of different discussions about not only her own life, but about living in gratitude. And certainly her company, Wake Up with Gratitude, and the Mid-Island Female Entrepreneurs Group. So I just want to kind of go back towards some of the things that you've done. Have you noticed a real trend in the way, as you're getting older yourself, as I'm getting older, we're all getting older during this time of COVID with our kids some of them are being homeschooled. There's there's opportunities that we get to share with them in gratitude that maybe we haven't had an opportunity to have done before. Or have you seen a change because you've been homeschooling your daughter? Is there a significant change in the way that you live your life due to COVID-19?
So, Kathy, the truth of the matter is we were homeschooling before COVID-19.
Yeah. I assumed you were.
Yeah. So for us, just a little story about our homeschooling is that when we moved to BC, which was now 3 years ago, just over 3 years ago, my daughter had a really hard time adjusting. So she was 7 years old, and she started suffering from very serious panic attacks and separation anxiety.
Oh dear.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
we struggled with the school to try and figure out how to get her to go to school. And I mean, I remember just some of the things that I did to try and get my child to go to school. And Kathy, I don't even want to repeat them on a radio show because as a parent, I can't
I
believe the
know.
things that, I tried so hard.
I know.
And, people are like, why you just can't get your kid to go to school? It's like, she can't go to, like, I don't think you understand. So
Yeah.
finally, we saw like an emergency counselor because we didn't even have benefits. Like we'd been in BC less than 90 days, right? So luckily my husband's new work was like, here, call this emergency number. We'll get you with a counselor like right away to help you and your daughter. And the counselor said, like, you need to homeschool your daughter. And honestly, Kathy, I almost cried because I knew intuitively that that's what had to happen. But my husband wasn't sure, and the school wasn't like, no, but we needed a professional to say. And I was like, she needs to like not go to school. So we started
I agree
homeschooling.
with you. It's hard to make that decision. Societal, it's a whole lot more common now, by the way. It's way
Yes.
more common for
Yeah.
people to homeschool than it's ever been. And not because of COVID, but because there's been a trend over the last 20 years where the education system has failed some areas of our kids' development. And so many parents have decided. I knew a woman in Maple Ridge who had 5 children and she homeschooled everyone.
And guess what? They're fine. They'll be okay. And
Totally
the
fine.
reason my
Extraordinary
message,
people, actually. Absolutely
yeah,
extraordinary people. Yeah.
and that is because often when you're homeschooling, the child has the ability to explore the things in depth that they love and are excited about. And the reason
Absolutely.
why, sorry.
Oh no, I was just saying absolutely. That's so true. They do. They get to have the time to actually unpack things at their own pace. And actually in many cases of homeschooling, and I'm not a proponent of either side. I've been in
Right. You do
education for
what's best for
do
your
what's right
family.
for your family.
Yeah.
And CHLY, we don't take a position on any of that stuff. Whatever's right for your family.
Mhm.
But it's not as cut and dry as it once was.
Kathy, I agree. And I'm glad you said that. I love the way that we school, but that's not for everybody. And it's also not possible for families. Like I work from home. Listen, I told you my health business had to go on the back burner, like my first business and first love, because the first year of us homeschooling included like a move to the island and a sale of a house and a purchase of a new house and my daughter dealing with like mental illness at 7. going to counseling and therapy and all these things, right? That really changed our life. But the reason I share my story more now, Kathy, is because there are many families who decided this year to make that choice. And I want to just let you know that it took us more than a year to figure out how to homeschool. And part of it is that when children leave school, they need to do something called deschooling, which means literally like just having up to a couple of months of just being a kid.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And that's
And
tough.
especially at that age, there's a rule of thumb that goes in teaching that's is about as archaic as it gets, but I stand by it. It still very much works. Children, especially children that are school age grades, K to 7, is you have only as many minutes as their age to hold their attention on one subject. So if a kid is 6 years old, you've got 6 minutes. If you've got a kid that's 11 years old, you've got 11 minutes, unless they are engaged in doing something that actually inspires them to go deeper into the learning.
So if you ask my daughter about snakes and geckos and lizards,
She'll be
just
able to tell us everything.
for like an hour, she
Love
knows
it.
so much more than I ever want to know about reptiles, and that is a-okay.
Yeah,
She's into horseback riding now, and that excites her, and she knows all the different kinds of horses and all the different names of the tack and all these things, right? That
so
I
good.
did not. This is what I think is the hardest thing to understand. I
Mhm.
didn't teach her this.
Yeah,
I'm not her teacher. I am her facilitator. I am helping her to find ways to explore. And honestly, the biggest gift we can give our children right now, you said COVID-19, how has things changed? Well, she doesn't see as many friends as she used to because, of course, most of her programs are canceled. But I will say that the one thing I think that is most important for us as parents to just remember is that right now our kids just need us to love them and let them know that they're safe
yep,
and that we're going to get through this together,
absolutely.
because we're a year in. And if it's hard on me,
Imagine what it's like.
imagine. And we know kids are resilient, but I just want to share that whether your kids are in school, out of school, online school, whatever school, no kid is falling behind this year. Like,
It's true.
we're all like, this is a global event. Like, we're not going to be the same. None of us are.
Yeah.
So let's just not
And,
worry about our
and
kids.
once again, this is a perfect opportunity to bring that gratitude back into our
Yeah.
life, right? And to recognize that these blips of time that we have with our kids are so spectacular and special. And we just need to be present. They don't care what's going on in the world. They care what mommy and daddy are doing. Want to
Absolutely.
know that they're connected to us. We're coming near the end of the program, which is like, oh my gosh, it went by so fast. I can't believe how quick it was gone. But one of the things that I really try to do on this program is have a moment of wisdom, a moment of teaching to our community from our life experiences, from the things that we love, the things that we do best. What if you had something to say to the community in the way of imbibing a teaching, a life lesson? What might that be?
I'm going to go right into gratitude on this one, Kathy. And what I want to say is, I want you to think about the bookends of your day. Those first few minutes when you wake up and the last few minutes before you go to sleep, because those are going to be the times of the day where you have the most control over your schedule. So in those first few minutes of the day, I want you to pick a way to practice gratitude. One little trick that I share is that if you're waking up to an alarm clock on your phone, as most people are, change the name of your alarm to I am grateful, or gratitude, or thank you for this day. Just change the name. You can actually, if you don't know how to do it, it's okay. Just Google it.
It's
That'll
easy.
tell you exactly how to do it.
Yeah.
Okay. That for me is, it's a simple reminder. You turn over your phone, you see what you might be like this, but you'll see it says, I am grateful. And then you just breathe for a moment, right? Just,
Mhm.
you woke up.
Yep, absolutely.
Like, thank you for this gift of another day and the opportunity to be of service to others and to make a difference in this world. That is my morning mantra, because today is not promised. So many lives have been lost this year to COVID-19.
Yep.
It is no guarantee. So thank you for this gift of another day. At the end of your day, finding a way to again bring back and review the day with a grateful lens. So no matter how difficult your day has been, I shared that I wrote in my gratitude journal after I'd had a miscarriage. I found things to be grateful for that day. I was so incredibly grateful that my daughter was at daycare,
Yeah,
right? What if she'd been
absolutely.
home? I mean, so that it can be as simple as I'm so grateful that I spent this time with Kathy today. And I'm sharing, the things that I'm excited about with this community that I've never, this is my first time connecting with your community, Kathy. I'm so honored and grateful. And that'll be in my gratitude tonight. Whether you write in a journal or not, that's okay. Even if you just paused for a moment and just said out loud 3 things you're grateful for, maybe do it with your kids or whoever's in your family circle right now, in your family unit, look at your partner, tell them why you're grateful. Give them one thing you're grateful about them today. You want to improve your marriage, Kathy? You want to have a better partnership? Tell your partner one thing a day you're grateful for them.
Absolutely. Wonderful words of wisdom. I couldn't agree with you more. People who have followed my program know that I have a young, well, he's not a young son. He's given me 2 beautiful grandchildren. So I'm very, very grateful for my son. But I remember when he was just a tiny little tot, and we wrote in our gratitude journal as a family every night. So, my son and I would cuddle up on the bed, we'd bring the book out, especially when he was learning his letters.
Yeah.
But in the days when he couldn't do his letters, we would still do it together. And I will never forget, it's still my favorite thing that he was grateful for. And it was 2 gumballs for 25 cents. He couldn't say 25 cents. It was 2 gumballs for 25 cents. And to this day, my son is 30 almost. And when I see him, I still see this little gumball child. And yeah. And there's something to be grateful for every day. And it doesn't have to be anything magnificent or big. Like you said, it could just be waking up, having the ability to go to sleep, seeing a bird go by, a roof over your head. And even if you don't have a roof over your head, or one of the more marginalized members of our community that are struggling, deep down that there's someone who loves you somewhere, somehow. And so with that, I'm very, very grateful that you've come on the program. Thank you again for tuning in to Act 3 on CHLY. In the Zoom booth today, we've had Julie Boyer. Oh my God, what an inspirational woman. I'm so glad that you've joined us today. How do people reach you one more time, Julie?
So my website is wakeupwithgratitude.com. My podcast is Wake Up with Gratitude, and you can find me on all the socials at Julie CM Boyer. Just look for my smiling face in that profile picture, and I'd love to be connected because I love to make new friends.
Well, thanks for connecting with us today. And I'm looking forward to getting to know you in the community better. We welcome you back to the show on another day for sure. Certainly keep us posted when that second book is being written. And we'll be looking forward to your lessons on using your telephone camera. Technology. In the meantime, enjoy that sunset safely. Enjoy the sunset and sunrise each day. And thanks for being on our program today. You have been listening to Act 3 on CHLY 101.7. We will see you next week, everybody. Have a wonderful day, and don't forget to be grateful. Today's a good day to say thank you to everything you have in your life. Bye for now, everybody.